yourself into a comfortable posture for meditation. Any way that you can sit is okay. Do keep an alert posture. You close your eyes and bring the attention to the feeling of the breath. Making a note. This is the time for meditation. This is the time for meditation. Which means not the time for thinking, planning, wanting, feeling. If you have a meditation system of your own, do carry on with that system. If you are new or you would like to try and follow my recommendations, feel free. So bring the attention to the sensation of the breath as it runs through the middle of the body. Following the physical feeling of the breath, it runs straight down the body, just in front of the spine, all the way to the seat. Even though you may know the physical wind passes into the lungs somewhere at the back of the chest, the physical sensation, the feeling of the breath, runs down the center of the body. This is the prana. If it's helpful, you can imagine a pipe running from the top of the head down to the seat, through which the wind passes. Try to be with each breath as it begins, lasts for a while, and then ceases. And there is a gap, and then the out-breath will begin. We put the attention onto the sensation of the breathing instead of all of the other things we can pay attention to. You could sit here thinking, planning, dreaming, wanting, disliking, falling asleep. But you train yourself to be willing to give up all objects of attention and just settle yourself with the breathing. The breath is neutral, it's not exciting, it's not pleasant, it's not unpleasant, it's not dull. You're training your attention to rest with something neutral. Of course, your mind, your ego would like to think about exciting or interesting things. Your mind craves stimulation. The meditator trains themselves to settle, be content with just the simple feeling of the breath. Every few moments the mind will start to wander away from the breathing, looking for something more stimulating, more exciting. When attention has wandered away, note where your attention has gone to the past or the future, to the thinking, to the hearing, to the feeling in the body. Wherever it is attention has gone to, you note. Hearing, hearing, thinking, thinking, wanting, wanting, feeling, feeling. And then you bring the attention back to the breath. This will start to arouse in you the feeling, the function of the witness, so that you always know where the mind is, what the mind is doing. You train this in meditation. In daily life, then it will start to come up. When you're getting angry, excited, caught in desire, when your mind becomes closed, negative and positive states will start to reveal themselves to you, become obvious. Because you are training in attention, you are training in knowing yourself. So we carry on with this simple practice, trust. We're not asking you to believe anything. We're not asking you to sign up to anything. Simply note carefully where your mind wanders off to. Be willing to give that thing up and return to the breath. If it is an important thought, you can come back to it later. If it's something that needs saying or doing, you can say or do it later. This is the time for meditation. Whatever it is, any thought, past or future, any want, any sound, any feeling in the body, just note where has your attention wandered to. Be willing to let it go and return attention to the sensation of the breathing through the center of the body. 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. This is a lifelong practice. Make your mind as bright and as steady as you can. Keep your attention inside your body. Keep attention firmly based in the present moment. Maintain that sense of control. And bring a smile into your heart, remembering to enjoy meditation, even if the mind is running off here and there, even if it's difficult to control, even if it's sleepy. Here goes my crazy mind again. Be willing to enjoy that presence, mindfulness, awareness, even if what you're aware of is the thinking or drowsy mind. And we'll switch the meditation to Sobhana Citta, beautiful mind. This means we call into mind, into being, a beautiful mind state. We can use loving kindness. So think of someone alive or passed away, a teacher or guru you've met or haven't met, anyone for whom it's easy to feel that unconditional love, that respect, that trust. Call them to mind and try to hold on to that feeling of metta, loving kindness. Together with gratitude, appreciation, respect. Holding on to that metta, you call to mind those people who you like, those people you love, those people for whom it's easy to arouse loving kindness. Friends, family that you appreciate. Call them to mind and wish them with sincerity. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be free from suffering. And those friends and colleagues who you see regularly, a part of your life, close or not so close, all those people in your life, call them to mind and offer them this metta, loving kindness, any way that you can arouse it. The thought, the feeling, the perception, loving kindness, universal. To those people too, may they be happy, may they be peaceful, may they be free from suffering. the people you interact with daily, drivers, taxis, shopkeepers, strangers. Call to mind this universal loving kindness. Call them to mind. May you too be happy, peaceful and free from suffering. Those people who have hurt you or abused you, without thinking of the things that they have done, just acknowledge all the bad things in the world come from people's suffering, from people's unhappiness. So you wish for them too. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be free from suffering. Offering to all those people who have hurt you or abused you, universal loving kindness too. All those beings, seen and unseen, near, far away, heavenly realms, deva realms, spirit realms, ghost realms, hell realms, human and animal, radiating from the center of your being, all beings everywhere in every state. May we all be happy, peaceful, free from suffering. And giving yourself the wish, may I develop patience. May I develop mindfulness. May I develop on the path to liberation. Sabbe buddha balapatta pachekanancha yang balang arahanta nancha te jena rakang bandami sabha soa sabba buddha nubhavena sattha soti bhavantu te Sabbe buddha balapatta pachekanancha yang balang arahanta nancha te jena rakang bandami sabha soa Sabadhamma nubhavena sattha soti bhavantu te Sabbe buddha balapatta pachekanancha yang balang arahanta nancha te jena rakang bandami sabbha soa sabba sangha nubhavena sattha soti bhavantu te. Okay, so relax your posture. So, this path of Dharma, according to Buddhism and other enlightenment traditions, by which I mean there are mystic or enlightenment traditions in Christianity, in Sufi, Hindu, every nation around the world, some form or other has found its way to this path of development and enlightenment. You find it cropping up everywhere. Ancient China, ancient India. India especially, there's a very good sense and feel for this idea of enlightenment, moksha, vimukti, liberation, awakening, sambodhi, amata, the different words that we have for it. The premise of enlightenment traditions is that we live in maya, delusion, and we have to do certain practices in order to extract ourselves from this delusionary world, and find that thing we call enlightenment, nibbana, awakening, liberation, all these different words. What is enlightenment? I think, to quote one of the great gurus of our age, just imagine what can be unburdened by what has been. Good, at least somebody got my joke here. I understand many of you don't get the joke, but... Joe, no?
I don't get it.
Okay. Probably just as well. Look up. What can be unburdened by what has been? Anyway, never mind.
I think Kamala Harris was in the same trip.
That's Kamala Harris that I'm quoting, yes. Like I said, one of the great gurus of our age, a savior of America. I'm sure she will make America great again. She's been amusing me. As you know, I was brought up in a middle-class family. This is her response to what will you do for the economy. So, I want to put aside for the moment what enlightenment or liberation is, but simply to note that different traditions around the world have posited this thing, this goal of consciousness, life. In Christianity is called union with God, occasionally called identity with God. The self gets completely out of the way and the soul gets united with God. They don't define what God is, fortunately. So St. John of the Cross, one of the great Spanish mystics, he described meditation as like cleaning a window. If you clean the window completely, then the sunlight comes through completely unobstructed. In the same way, the meditation will take yourself out of the picture, and then just the divine spirit will come through. I'm a little wary about using Christian terms and terminology. In Buddhism, we have our own terms and terminology that I am much more comfortable with. So this idea then, there is the amata, this point of amata means deathless, of liberation that lies as a potential for all human beings. Sometimes there is the question, is it a potential for dogs and cats and cows? I don't know. Ramana Maharshi, Indian mystic, he had an enlightened cow. So he said. Yeah. I don't know, but for human beings, we have. You're laughing. He had this. Cows are sacred in India, right? And so he had this cow that stayed with him for a long time, and then finally it died, and it said, the cow has attained to liberation. I'm sure my cat is further along the spiritual path than I am. Seems to be able to meditate. A little beam of sunlight and it's just happy. I sit and meditate and I have all these thoughts and wants and desires and worries, and I'm sure my cat can do it better than I can. So, my own personal reflections in the last few months, have been on the nature of this Maya delusion that we have to extract ourselves from. Because, for me, getting into this path, I wanted to find something real. I didn't want another set of beliefs and thoughts and opinions. I didn't want to sign up to schools. I didn't want to download a whole new set of constructs and stories. Switch out my old stories for a new set of stories, new set of beliefs. We all have a potential to reach this enlightenment. A potential, by the way, was called the Tathagata Gaba. You can look this up. Tathagata is the name that the Buddha used to refer to himself. There's some discrepancy on what it means. It means either thus come or thus gone. Probably it's actually a pun because it can mean either one of those things. And people like puns. Even enlightened Buddhas like puns. So Tathagata Gaba. Gaba means the womb. So the womb of the enlightened one. But the term is understood to mean potential. Later on it got called Buddha nature and starts to appear more prominently in Mahayana Buddhism. But originally was the potential of all beings to reach this enlightenment. Is it for me? It's not mine, is it? Okay, we got it. Weren't you tutting then? That's somebody's phone, and then it's your own. I did that once. The phone was going off and it was behind a wall. And I tried to ignore it, and I tried to be mindful, and I tried to be patient, and then it just kept going and going, and I said, look, just turn the phone off, whoever it is. And then someone went behind the wall and picked up the bag that had the phone in it. It's my bag. I have the same thing. I don't use my phone much, but if they did, it would ring. So this path to enlightenment, we have the potential to do it. We have to extract ourselves from this idea of Maya or delusion, sometimes, or a related concept in Theravada Buddhism would be samsara, the cycle of life, death and rebirth, that we are, according to Buddhism, we are going to get reborn time and time again. We can be male, we can be female, we can be rich or poor, we can be a blacksmith, we can be a carpenter. That's what it says in the scriptures. They don't mention web designer or modern day influencer. And we get born time and time again in higher or lower rebirths until eventually we find our way out of this samsara. So these concepts related: samsara, the wheel of rebirth, and maya, the realm of delusion. The realm of delusion is built from our own concepts and thoughts and ideas. We have a conceptual framework in which we live in the world, built of our expectations. We can use different words for this. In psychology, I might use constructs. It's from the personal construct theory of George Kelly, of which I'm a big fan. However, George Kelly used the word expectations, how you expect the world to be. Stories, concepts, conceptual framework, however you want to call it. And we get used to living in this conceptually built world. It's described in one of my favorite Zen texts as like creepers. Creepers are not trees. They don't have a substance of their own, but they will creep over trees and boats and houses, and then the original structure may crumble away, but the creeper just kind of hangs there. And usually it has a very small stalk or stem somewhere. If you go down the canals in Thailand, the old canals, you often see old houses and old boats that have just been covered with creepers. So in the same way, our thoughts and concepts creep over and cover the real world or universe. And eventually those things that we look at and relate to in the world can even disappear. We're just left with our thoughts and constructs. How this comes about is never really explained in Indian traditions. It's big in Indian tradition, this idea of maya, delusion. But in psychology, we can follow it step by step. When an animal is born, if you bring an object into its field of vision or sound, it gets interested in that object. All animals start to differentiate this wall of color and start to make objects out of it. So as an animal starts to become aware of objects, it gets fascinating to the animal. If you note children, very young infants, if you bring a rattle, it gets interested in the rattle. If you put the rattle under a piece of cloth, the baby no longer knows that the rattle is there. It's disappeared. It has zero interest. But as it starts to get older, the baby starts to realize, just because I can't see that thing doesn't mean that thing isn't there. So then they get very curious and start pulling aside blankets and looking in cupboards and doing things, because they have this idea that objects are still there whether I perceive them or not. It's the beginning of this conceptual world. In psychology, it's called object permanence. You start to know objects are really there whether I perceive them or not. Very young babies just sees the world as it is, but as it gets older, it comes in and knows, that cupboard has cookies. This doorway leads to outside, this different things, toys here and there. So it knows that there are objects. If you play with cats, we often have little kittens in my corridor. I like to play with them, and I get a straw, and I run the straw around, and then the cat comes after the straw. I don't know why it amuses me so much, but I can spend a goodly length of time running the straw, running it over walls and boxes and things. But the thing the kitten loves best of all is when I take a piece of cloth and I do the straw behind the cloth. You see what happens? The cat, the kitten, knows that the straw is there even though it can't really perceive it, or can just hear the occasional noise. You make a little noise and then the cat's going to jump on it. it has an idea, a conceptual idea of objects existing in the world, even though it can't see or hear it at that second. As we get older, we learn to manipulate these things around in our mind. We learn to, for example, hear the rustling of the leaves. We might not have seen a tiger. We might not have ever seen a real tiger, but we've heard about them. And then the rustling of the leaves, is that a tiger? Is that an animal? We start to impute, is that the right word? Objects onto senses and sounds and sights. So a bush rattles or shakes in a different way. We don't just see a shaking bush, we see an animal shaking the bush. We don't just hear the sounds of the leaves rustling, we hear something rustling the leaves, right? We start to build up this conceptual universe for good reasons, for safety reasons. Our ability to draw objects out of the environment is very much our survival depends on it. This is why zebras, or zebras if you're American, actually called zebras. I'm sure in Africa there's zebras. This is why they have stripes. The stripes on a zebra are not camouflage against grass or trees or savanna. They are camouflage against other zebras. So when a tiger, zebras, it's going to be a lion, right? A lion is seeing the zebras. It can't pick out a particular animal. It just sees a big wall of these zebras. So it's hard for the tiger, the lion, to pick a certain animal and catch it unless it becomes separated from the herd. So what scientists would do is when they're trying to investigate and study zebras, they paint a big red splodge on the back of the zebra so they can follow one zebra. How does it work in the herd? Of course, then the lion gets it, because the lion can pick it out now. It's no longer camouflaged against the herd. So this ability to pick out objects is what determines our survivability. Humans have a curious ability with this. Some animals may too, but not many. Is we can actually manipulate objects purely conceptually and work something out without actually seeing it, without actually hearing it or doing it. For most animals, they have to actually do something in order to figure it out. But some animals, like birds, can actually see another bird do something and figure it out. He's copying their behavior. But humans can actually have a completely novel new situation, manipulate it in our heads, and then solve the problem. Psychologists have a lot of experiments with this. They actually had one with elephants. Elephants can do this to some degree. They had a bunch of bananas that the elephants want to get. And the bananas are in front of a long stick. So looking from your end, the stick is here, the bananas are here. And there's a rope on each end of the stick. And the only way that the elephants can get the bananas is if two of them pull the rope simultaneously. And it seems to be most animals like monkeys and chimps will go and they'll start pulling ropes immediately or trying to get the bananas immediately. But the elephants would go and they would call another elephant and they would kind of tap it, you know, you grab that end, I'll grab this end. They actually work it out conceptually first to get their bananas. Monkeys can do this to some degree. There is also some crows. I don't know if you've seen them, they do this. In psychology, I'm a psychologist by my degree, so I've studied a lot of these things. There's a peanut in a tube of water, just a little bit of water. And the only way the crow can get the water out is if it tips water into the pipe and then the peanut floats up and it gets the peanut. And it seems, it's a little disputed, but it seems that the crow can actually work that out. Most animals can't. Cats are not very good. Cats can't do anything unless they've done it by chance. They can't work things out. So the famous experiments with Skinner, he put the cats in the cage. And isn't he studied this? Any psychologists here? Called operant learning. I usually hope there's no psychologists here, just in case I get my terms mixed up. And so you put the cat in the cage, and it has to move a certain lever, and the door will open, it can get out. And then he puts the cat back in the cage. What does the cat do? Does it open the lever to get out? No, it starts doing random acts and pushing here and sniffing and kicking and pushing, and eventually it comes to move the lever again. And the door opens. The cat never gets the insight. Moving the lever opens the door. It just gets faster and faster at coming across it by chance, if you see what I mean. So this idea that humans, we can hold concepts and objects in our mind, manipulate them in our mind, and work something out. Possibly unique in the animal kingdom, that we can have such a constructed conceptual universe. But what that means is you spend most of your time in your conceptual world, moving concepts around, getting different ideas, matching them up against other ideas, figuring out how you're going to make money, figuring out how you're going to make a product and advertise it and sell it, and increase your bank account, and then you can buy your house, and then you can have a child. That's probably the end of your fantasy life there, isn't it? And then you get rich and wealthy, and then you have a boat. I would have these fantasies myself, especially as a monk, because we have a lot of time. Especially as a young monk, you have few duties. So I could sit there for fantasizing for years and years and build these elaborate universes. I even know the building and how I'm going to decorate it and how the business will work. And yeah, you get caught in these fantasy worlds, conceptual universe. And in fact, the more suffering you have in your daily life, the more difficult it is for you to live in daily life, the more you will have that tendency to retreat into fantasy worlds. Have you noticed this? That the people who are really good with art, with music and writing and screenplays and books, are people who are really quite troubled and traumatized. The really sane, sound people tend not to be so artistic. They may be capable people, capable leaders or operators, but so that's what happens. We retreat into this conceptual universe. This world, this universe that you are in, Maya, then happiness starts to come when you can arrange a better set of concepts, a better set of objects in your conceptual universe will make you a bit happier. If you're American right now, you start thinking about the American election. What's going to happen? In Britain, we just had an election. Yeah, the Labour Party got 3 million fewer votes than they got in the last election, but somehow they won by a big majority. And now they're doing a complete chaos, bad job. I guess they have to figure out how to do it. So you put your attention onto it, and then how my country should be run. Should we have the military back in charge of Thailand? Thailand too, they had a political party, they won the election but didn't get to form the government. Funny. So these kind of things then cause you suffering if you don't like it, cause you happiness if you do like it. You want to change it, replace it. So you get all these political views and opinions. And then everything starts to get coloured through your political views and opinions because you've been thinking about it. Because that's your Maya, your conceptual universe that you are living in. Might not be politics for you. For me, it's engineering. I love to build things in my mind. I've built houses and cars and aeroplanes, boats. But my most recent thing is I've been obsessed with ducted fans. So you know you have a propeller on an aeroplane, right? But if you put that propeller in a ducted fan, you increase the power output. And I've got obsessed with this. Been designing all kinds of fans and aircraft and things that use them. Because if I go into that conceptual universe and I'm manipulating these concepts and I'm creating something that I like, I get a kind of satisfaction out of that by rearranging the concepts. This is what religion does too, right? We get a whole new set of constructs and a new set of stories. Maybe I feel better if I have a new set of stories. It's not real. It's all Maya, delusion. It's all more constructs, more stories to replace the stories that came before them. Our path of meditation should be, for me at least, should be going to what's real. That was a big red line for me when I got involved with Buddhism, is it needs to be actually real. And what's real is often not very much. So if I sit here and I'm meditating and my mind goes to a ducted fan, that's a ducted fan. That's real, that's come up in my thought, in my attention. I've just put my attention onto it. I've reacted with liking and thinking and concepts and grabbing. Now I remember I'm meditating. It's still there trying to get my attention. Fizzled out. I come back to my breath. Tomorrow I have some people coming to the temple, so just now when I'm meditating I suddenly thought, what am I going to eat? Because I have to eat before they come. I can't eat in the sala. Pizzas are 2 for the price of 1 at the moment. Now I'm in my conceptual universe again. If I'm mindful, I can see that. Okay, thinking, or eating. Drop it, bring my attention back to the breath. That's actually real. That's something that really happened. That thought occurred, I reacted with my mind, liking, disliking, wanting, not wanting, attachment, conceptualizing it, creating a story around it. That's the process. And everything that I put my attention onto goes the same way. If nothing's disturbing me or troubling me, I'm thinking about ducted fans. I'm in that universe. But if people are knocking on my door or drilling, my temple, they had these water tanks built into every room. And you're supposed to fill the water tank and then you scoop the water on you for the bath. But everyone uses the showers because you can, direct it around. So the temple has been, they sent a crew around to remove these built-in water tanks from every bathroom, and you get the space. You put a washing machine in or something. But by God, does it make a lot of noise. The jackhammer, they have to jackhammer these things out of the wall. So, usually 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting there doing my meditation, and then suddenly, I've been waiting for 2 years for this to stop. And then it takes about 2 days to do each room, and then they'll do a room down the corridor and it'll be faint. And then a week later it'll be the one underneath me. I was really angry about it until I realized that they could do my room as well. So I've had my water tank removed. So what happens, that noise comes up, boom, my mind goes to that noise. I'm reacting, liking and disliking. I'm creating stories around it. Shall I go? I have a friend owns a hotel in Sukhumvit 1. Shall I go and stay with him? He has nice breakfasts. Create a whole story. I'm lost back in my maya, my delusion. So this is our process that we are getting into in meditation. The first thing that we have to learn to do. When the mind starts creating, conceptualizing, manipulating thoughts and ideas and stories, trying to create happiness inside the deluded maya, delusionary world. Even if it's real, even if you do have to buy houses and open businesses and get visas. When I say delusion, it doesn't mean that it's fake or it's not real. It's just a conceptual manipulating these concepts and stories. So that's what we do with meditation. When your mind goes to something, you know exactly where the mind has gone. Note it clearly. Thinking, or wanting, believing, non-acceptance, Kamala Harris. You see where your mind goes to. By doing this practice, it should start to reveal to you things in your own character. One of the things I remember clearly learning when I first started meditation, before I was a monk, I'd been on a couple of meditation retreats. I was living in New Zealand, and I went back to this house where I lived at in New Zealand. Saw owner of the house, he's a good friend of mine, and the first thing we did was we go to the pub to play pool. That was kind of what we did. And we got to the pub and we were playing pool, and suddenly I realized, this place stinks of alcohol. It's really noisy. And then I tasted the beer, and I thought, beer tastes awful. I'd always enjoyed it. I wasn't big on alcohol, but I'd enjoyed a drink. And suddenly I was like, I actually don't enjoy this. Mindfulness should start to reveal things to you. When you're angry at something or someone, and you know you're angry, but you are caught in your anger. If you're mindful, you know, oh, this is anger. It may still be there, it may still get hold of you, but, well, not for very long. It'll dissipate before very long. Yeah. Like the Incredible Hulk. I know I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, some people went here, when he gets angry and he gets big, I presume everyone knows what the Incredible Hulk is. When he gets angry, he grows very big and green and huge muscles, starts smashing things up. Somehow still manages to avoid beating up anybody who doesn't deserve it. And then he'll go to an alleyway somewhere, and then he's calm down, and then his skin goes back to a regular color, his muscles come back down. But this is the feeling, right? Good stories characterize things that are real in you. When you get angry, you have that Incredible Hulk come up. You want to smite your enemies. So I like that bit with the Hulk where he calms down in the alleyway and slowly returns to normal. If you're mindful, you feel that. I feel it when I get caught in desire. I don't know what you guys desire. For me, my desires are fairly simple. Main thing that will do it for me is power tools. A nice 14-volt twin battery Makita cordless power drill with hammer action. What's not to love? People like cars and planes and travel and clothes and conversations and coffee. You get caught in desire, then your world condenses around that. Nothing so much wrong with it for most people. I think most people here live with your desires in a reasonable form of restraint. You don't get too bad with it. But it will catch your mind. You are in that maya, in the conceptual universe. So meditation, you should start to note where the mind goes to, where it actually goes. You've traded this whole big universe with fantasies and ideas and religions and enlightenment, and what you have is just a small handful of my mind's gone here, my mind's gone here, my mind's gone here. Being willing to bring it back, time and time again, 100 times, 1,000 times. It's a lifelong practice, returning attention. When attention returns back to yourself, you have a feeling of waking up. It's not massive, it's not earth-shattering, but there is a feeling of presence. And I would use this in my meditation sometimes. I would say to myself, I'm here, when my attention is returned. To draw a distinction from when I'm not here. Do you notice this in meditation? You can sit and meditate, and you're breathing in, and you're breathing out, and you're breathing in, and you're breathing out, and oh dear, that was 15 minutes ago. I've been lost in thought. Who's going to win the World Cup? Or whatever it is that you're thinking about. Do you have this experience? You have this when you're driving, right? You think you're driving along the road, and then you realize you've been thinking for the last 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. One time I drove from London to Manchester. You get on the motorway, you drive for an hour, and then you split, and you go up the M6 for another hour and a half, something like that. One motorway is on one side of the country, the other is on the other side of the country, and I just need to split off one turn. Lost in thought. I went up the wrong side of Britain. I wound up in Yorkshire. Not in Sheffield. Sheffield in Yorkshire? I had to go over, there's this thing called the Snake Pass, where you drive the pass between the one side of Britain and the other side, and it's a little windy road. You don't want to go up there in winter. So, how much time do you spend lost in maya, in delusion, in the fantasy world? Meditation is bringing yourself back to raw experience, being mindful as you eat, as you walk, as you stand up, as you sit down, bringing mindfulness to every action. Next week, I want to talk a little bit then about some of the states or experiences that will start to occur when you have extracted from the delusionary world. What does it feel like? Because our goal is not simply just to be a little bit more mindful. Our goal, enlightenment or the beginning of the enlightenment states, are vastly more beautiful, more powerful, more self-evident, vibrant than living in the conceptual world. The path becomes self-evident, but these are called jhana states or concentration states, and they are things that start to arise as you do more meditation. So I'm going to talk more about that next week. This week I wanted to talk about extracting from the conceptual universe and starting to tie attention patiently into this humble but real experience of what's actually going on. Okay, if you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to, or we can...
Thank you so much. Thank you for your elaborations, very interesting. I actually have two questions. You just mentioned I'm not a very knowledgeable, I'm not a Buddhist, I would define myself Buddhist, but I can meditate. I heard about jhana and a different stage of concentration. And you mentioned enlightenment earlier. You also mentioned wanting.
Right.
But my aim of meditation is overcome wanting. So how can I progress without wanting? Is that even possible?
Right.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So it's actually a question that has dogged Buddhism for a long time. Nichiren Buddhism in Japan, what they say is, you want to get enlightened, but getting enlightened is to go past wanting. But if you want to get enlightened, you're already trapped. Therefore, it doesn't work. And that's why all the Buddhists throughout history, their schools don't work. But our school works. Because in our school, we don't go past wanting. We simply reduce all our wanting to the want for only enlightenment. That's what they say. Therefore, forget all those other schools. Ours is the correct one. Wanting, in Buddhist, Theravada Buddhist terminology is very precise, conceptually, as a conceptual framework. And what it means is sense, desire, wanting. So wanting for a particular object of sense. So, you want money. I want a bank account with $1 million in it. That will suit me. 5 million. That's a quicker way to end suffering than meditation. So I want it. So my thought goes to wanting it. Or maybe I buy a lottery ticket, $5 million prize. I want it. What shall I do with it? Now I'm in the conceptual universe. I'm going to buy a boat. I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to go traveling. A what? Power drills, yes. The power drills was, because I don't do much DIY, I was thinking all the other monks in my building, they need things doing. So I'll be able to help them. So buying this power drill is actually an act of compassion for everybody else. So when attention lands on something, then wanting will arise, liking or disliking. Because of liking and disliking, attachment. Because of attachment, you get engaged. Getting engaged with it, you're in that conceptual universe with that thing. What if the mind stopped going out to anything? That is still a real experience that comes up. And if you touch it and taste it, and then you start wanting it, you've got back in that same trap again. But the act of wanting it takes you out of the experience, right? And takes you into a conceptual unit. So you learn to differentiate. Okay, there's a form of wanting that draws me into the conceptual universe around that thing. I think about Julia Roberts. I want to marry. She's getting old now. I need to pick a new person. I'm not very well up on current people. I want to marry Julia Roberts. Sandra Bullock. I love Sandra Bullock. My attention lands on it, draws me in. Now I'm in that framework. The enlightenment states, or jhana states, or the meditation states, start to arise as a brightness when the mind isn't landing on any object. So the desire that you're getting past is the desire that gets sparked when I hear something I like, when I see something I like, when I think of something I like, when I walk past the shop with the drills and I want it. That's the desire that we're getting past. But the desire to do the meditation, firstly, the Buddha said, you should meditate like your hair is on fire. If your hair is on fire, you would make an effort to put that flame out. That's the effort you need to make in meditation. So he's very clearly saying this isn't just chilling out and out and out, becoming more and more zzz. Because I made that mistake for 20 years. I thought meditation was about making everything quiet it's not. When the correct states start to arrive, they're vibrant, there's a starburst. Like, you know. I'm not claiming to be enlightened. So yes, wanting applies to objects of sense. However, the meditation will start to blossom when that process has stopped. The attention going out to things. Also, by the way, you get this intensified sense of self. So I want to mention that because some people get mistaken around that point. Is that both your questions? Yeah.
There's something I kind of want, but I understand I need to let the wanting go.
With every object, let the wanting go with every object that attention goes to. So you train yourself then to continually be dropping every object of attention. Sooner or later, attention stops going out and it returns inwards. You have a feeling the body feels large, feels bright. There's a feeling of unfolding and waking up, energization that comes through the body. And this experience will dissipate if your mind lands on an object and starts getting caught in the conceptual world. It'll be gone. So then you can tell very easily. Sense, desire, wanting, or this, no, that putting forth effort into meditation is necessary. It's just tricky on how to do it, because for years I would really try, but I was trying in the wrong way. And then my teacher said, you should never want, you should never try. So I would just kind of zzz. And then myself would disappear, and the formless, empty space, and then the bell will go, and I'm like, hey, I must be getting enlightened. And that was the wrong way, too. Yeah. So intensified, right?
What's the right?
Well, we'll come on to that next week.
Come back on next Monday, you'll find it.
The practice, when attention goes to something, you should know that attention has gone to that thing. When that thing has caught your attention, you should know you're in the conceptual maya, conceptual universe around that thing. My mind thinks of $5 million. Now I'm caught in it. I want it. This is how I'm going to spend it. This is what I'll do with it. This is how much I'll save. My mind goes to Julia Roberts. I want to marry her. Conceptually, I marry her. She's a nightmare. 5 years later, I saw someone describing love. I've never been in love. Is that sad? Saw someone describing love, and she said, a child had asked her, like a 6-year-old child, what's it like to be in love? And she said, you know when you lose your mummy in the mall and you suddenly realize that she's gone and you're wandering around and you're terrified and you're scared and you're looking around for her and then you see mummy's leg and you go over and you grab the leg and that feeling of safety, that feeling of belonging that happens when you've found mummy's leg. And then you look up and realize it isn't mummy. That's what love feels like. I take it she's had some bad experiences with love. Yeah.
Just speak it out, and by the time I get there, you'll know.
That was Taylor Tomlinson, if you know her. She's quite good. I like comedians.
Yeah, so thank you for this event. It's amazing first time discussion. And it's very good. I was wondering what's like if like wanting things. So what's the aim of noticing that you want things? What I mean is what's the like end goal if you like for example don't want to become monk but want to live like world life, you like have a family, like career and all that. How does this like meditation, Buddhist practices fit into that?
Right, the talk of not wanting, because we conceptualize it, it's so hard to get out of this maya, this thing of conceptualizing things. And we do this with Buddhism too. It's another set of stories. But it's a set of stories that is trying to tell you to get out of all sets of stories. A bit like the stick that stirs the funeral pyre. Eventually you throw that stick onto the fire too. Or a bit like a computer game that you're caught in, and then somebody's telling you, stop playing the computer, and you can't hear them. So you have to make a little avatar and send it into the game. And a little character in the game says, you can stop playing the game. And then it might be just me that thinks of it that way. There was a kid, I went to the temple in Bangkok when I lived outside, and there was a kid playing the computer game, and I said, hey, go and get me some lunch, because I'm not really supposed to be there. So he says, yeah, like this. So I come back 10 minutes later, and I said, go get me my lunch, my khao pat mang sawi rat, vegetarian fried rice. Yeah. Anyway, it's getting close to midday now, my time's coming up, so I went in and I turned his monitor off. And he was like, ugh. Because he couldn't stand up properly, because he's in the game, he's running. So I turned it off, and his whole world is like there. So we're in that computer game, which is our conceptual universe, and then the problem is we bring Buddhist ideas or Enlightenment ideas to fight against the other ideas and concepts. And you haven't, some point of doing that, it suddenly occurs to you like, wait, I just have to step out of it altogether. So what was your question?
So yeah, you learn tools to step out of it, like,
right,
at least for a moment. But then what? Like, should you just aim to drop every worldly thing you want to do or doing? Or
should you just aim to drop every worldly thing? But then that's another set of concepts. And I had that too when I became a monk. I thought, I'm going to be the best monk. I'm never going to break a rule. I'll die before I break a rule. And I'm going to want nothing. But then, like, I want to go to the bathroom. Like, bugger, is that a want? Am I caught, like, it doesn't work. Conceptually, it just doesn't work. But in meditation, things that are complete paradoxes or impossible in the conceptual world start to work. One thing is, the further something is, the more you try to get to something, the more it goes away from you. The less you try and get to it, the more it comes to you. Everything works in a paradox in the meditation. So you train yourself, note this process of attention landing on something. When it lands on something, it fires up, liking, disliking, wanting, attachment, story. Or sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, you look at Tom's shirt,
Yeah, yes, please.
his shirt. Are you caught in desire and wanting?
You should.
Do you want that shirt? How much does it cost? Where did he get it from? Now, attention is landing on it, but you're not really getting caught in desire. The desire is weak for the shirt, unless you like the shirt. But this process of attention landing on objects, and what you will do is you will fire attention onto things that you particularly like or dislike. You spend little time looking at the neutral. That's one reason why the breath is so valuable, because it's a neutral object. So you watch this process. Eventually the mind stops going out to anything and starts to become self-aware, self-evident. In the meantime, it should start to afford you a lot of insights into your own character. Most people are purely externally driven. There's this thing, there's that person, there's that. They don't have awareness of I want, I like, I dislike. You're just caught in the external concepts. So the first step of meditation should start to expose yourself to you, to which most people are blind. Yeah?
so
Any-
basically, if you notice something, you can choose your reaction. Is that what you mean?
you can choose your reaction, but you can also see what happens when you don't react. Just drop it. I have a story about this, just very quickly, because we're out of time. But, make sure you get the correct point out of this story, because people always remember the wrong part. Before I came to Thailand, I was planning to ordain as a monk. And I'd been in the monastery for a year, and I left, and I went to work as a chef for a year in a beautiful seaside town called Dartmouth in the south of England. And I just wanted to have a little simple job, live in, get some space, and then go to Thailand and become a monk. I just wanted a bit of space. And while I was working there, the Dartmouth's very small, not many people, so you send a note who's who, and not that many attractive girls in Dartmouth because it's very small. But there was a very sexy hairdresser. And we had noticed each other. And I started to think, well, do I go and talk to her? Do I need a haircut? And then my mind got caught up in it, and I was thinking, yeah, but I want to go and become a monk. He's like, yeah, but I want to hook up with the hairdresser. And like, if I'm still wanting to hook up with the hairdresser, how can I ever be a monk? I suppose I can know my desires and control my desires. And yeah, but she's really cute, and maybe like just for a year or 6 months or so, then I can go. And this thing was just like a war in my head. And like, well, which do I do? Which one is stronger? Is the monk side of me stronger, or the hook up with the hairdresser side of me stronger? And it was fighting. And then one day I was walking down to work, and it's a very beautiful town, and people have flower boxes outside their windows. And I heard the seagulls, and I looked up and saw the flower boxes, and I thought, that's why I'm in Dartmouth. And just at that moment, the whole, do I become a monk, do I hook up with a hairdresser, the whole thing just vanished. Like, that's what it's about. It's not about making one side of me beat down the other side of me. It's about learning how to just extract from this whole process. And then it's beautiful. So every day I'd been walking to work, missing just the beauty of this beautiful town, which is why I had gone there. So that dropping where everything stops and the mind becomes pristine, like, oh, that's right, that's what it's about. We're out of time.
Go for it, go for it. I think the world doesn't stop when we don't leave at 8 o'clock.
No, I didn't hook up with the hairdresser. I realized at that moment, oh, that's why I'm going to become a monk. When it all stops, that's the thing that I want. Yeah. Please remember the moral of that story, because people are always like I say, I went to Canada and then people say to me, did you meet any hairdressers? You're like, no. That's not the moral of the story. Okay, I'll still be here if anybody wants to chat, but we can wrap up for the day.
I'm going to have a leap of faith and assume that you're going to be here next week, is that correct?
Yes.
And then the following week is going to be Dharma Circle.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. Okay, thank you very much for a very interesting talk. I appreciate it. Your normal and everything. But, yeah, okay. I will only keep this short because you're going to give a blessing in a second. But we have two boxes outside. One for the speaker, which is Pandit, and the other for Planary. Both are worthy, and I think you have to decide which one is more worthy or which one is worthy. Because we get the room, and that's a wonderful thing, because we didn't have a room before. So if you could also help out a little bit by moving the brown chairs into this room, and the white chairs, all except 6, behind the curtain. The green chairs have a curtain behind them, and we put the white chairs there. And I think everything is more or less, that covers everything except that I think Joe sometimes organizes a coffee